Hello Eagles Nation, Vincent Foast here, and welcome to a divisional round Eagles chat. We're here at Eagles chat, we get down right to the news you want to hear on your birds. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe to the Eagles Chat YouTube channel, as well as following us on Instagram at Chat Eagles, where you can find daily updates on your birds. And you can also find our Instagram in the description of this video. But now let's get right into it. And yes, the Eagles ran over the LA Rams. And of course, when I say that, I don't mean that in terms of them winning by a huge amount. I mean, they literally ran through the Rams, referring to the run game, as Saquon Barkley ran through the LA Rams like Taco Bell runs through a human being. It was absolutely incredible to witness in a game that I'm not going to forget in probably a long time, both because of the positive reasons and the negative reasons, as I had possibly around 3 to 4 heart attacks, possibly even more during that entire game. And as you probably guessed it, most of those heart attacks happened at the end. But hey, the Eagles got the win. That's all that matters. And they move on to the NFC Championship game, and that will be held up against the Washington Commanders Sunday, January 26th, 3 o'clock p.m. at Lincoln Financial Field. So, Washington Commanders, no team to underestimate. They just came off of a huge upset win in Detroit against the Lions. That's definitely, that's a team that you're not going to want to mess with 100%. A team where the Eagles really need to come up with a good, solid game plan against. And the Commanders all year have been finding ways to win. And yeah, it's not like this is the second time they're going up against the Commanders. Yeah, it's the third time they're going up against the Commanders. It's tough enough going up against 3 teams regularly twice a year. But how about try that 5 teams twice a year, as they went up against the Commanders twice, the Cowboys twice, the Giants twice. They went up against Green Bay twice, once in the regular season, once in the playoffs. They went up against the Rams twice, once in the regular season, once in the playoffs. The Commanders, yeah, they went up against them twice, but this is their third time. So we'll have to see what type of game plan the Eagles bring. Jaden Daniels, for the QB for Washington, a young quarterback. He's going to be a star one day in my eyes. I see him really developing into a very, very strong quarterback, a guy that they really cannot underestimate. We'll see what the Birds do next week. But first, let's enjoy this one, and let's get into the Eagles chat even more. We're first going to start off with the injury update. So we have a couple players on this injury update. First one being Quinyon Mitchell. So the news with him is he is said to have a shoulder injury. Now, some good news came out of the Eagles organization. They said it's something that could have been worse, but it's not too bad. It's not something extremely bad, which is really good news to hear. So we're going to continue to monitor this very, very closely as the rest of the week continues. Usually injury updates don't tend to come out until midweek, around Wednesday, when the team starts to practice again. So we'll see how Q feels as the week continues on. Of course, the Eagles can't afford too many injuries in the cornerback room, as they're already light there right now on backups, especially as Isaiah Rodgers was the guy who came in for Quinyon Mitchell yesterday, and then he went out for a play, but luckily Rodgers was able to return. So, yeah, definitely, specifically talking about Quinyon Mitchell, you do not want to see this guy go down. Probably one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Was one heck of a pickup in the draft, and is a really, really talented rookie that we have on this team. So hopefully he will be back and ready to go. Again, the Eagles said it's nothing too bad, nothing too much to worry about. So hopefully that's what it is. They said they'll have to evaluate him more as the week continues on. But we'll continue to monitor that injury very, very closely. Make sure to follow us on Instagram to stay updated with everything to do with your Birds. But now let's move on to our next injury, Jalen Hurts. So yes, as you probably all saw, Jalen Hurts went down. It was kind of a weird type of situation where he was tackled, but he was bent backwards. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, uh-oh, something had to have popped in his knee. There's no doubt about it. But no, Hurts was able to get back on the field. They put a brace on his knee, and he was able to continue on with the game. He was he was out when the defense was on the field. They put the brace on him. Next time the offense came out for their next drive, here comes Jalen Hurts. So, man, definitely showing what a tank of a player he is, what an alpha male that he really is, and what a leader he is for his team. So hopefully Hurts will be ready to go next week. Now, the media, I should say, caught up with the Eagles after the game and asked Hurts, do you think you will be ready to play next week? And he answered with a strong one-word answer, and that was, yeah, and shook his head. Of course, later he elaborated on that and said, we'll have to see how I feel as the week continues on. So make sure to follow us on Instagram, again, in the description of this video, to stay updated with everything to do with your Birds in terms of injuries or roster moods, whatever. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. We'll do the best possible covering both of these injuries, and hopefully we will have both of these guys ready to go for next week's game in the NFC Championship game at Lincoln Financial Field. We'll just have to wait and see. But now, let's move on to Jalen Hurts' play. So we just talked about his injury. Well, how did he play? And it was an iffy game to go with the iffy weather that we had yesterday. But let's first start off with his passing stats. He was 15 out of 20 for 128 passing yards. No passing touchdowns. But let's go on to his running stats. He had 7 carries for 70 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. That rushing touchdown was a 44-yard run, his longest of his career. So, man, that was an absolutely strong run by Hurts. Have to give him a lot of credit right there, as he didn't look like he was running fast at all, but then somehow he started outrunning the whole Rams defense, which was absolutely incredible to see. I was out of my mind watching Hurts run that play, and it just set the Eagles up for a great start to the game. So, yeah, Hurts definitely used his legs. That's another key reason why I hope Hurts will be ready to go next week, as Hurts needs his legs to be Jalen Hurts himself. So, yeah, hopefully he'll be ready to go next week with that knee injury. Hopefully it doesn't hurt him too much on the run game. But let's now talk about his passing. And a lot of people were criticizing him yesterday, especially for that safety obviously in the end zone where he got tackled. In that type of situation, you should just be happy that Hurts was able to hold on to the ball and didn't fumble the ball in the end zone for LA to recover that as a touchdown. That's something that I was looking at. Yeah, he got a safety, but people were saying, oh, throw it away. Why didn't he throw it away? Well, he was still kind of in the pocket, and there wasn't really anyone in the area he could throw it to. By the time he was going to throw it, there was already Rams players in his face. So it was one of those tough situations, but still, something I would like to see Hurts do better would be the quick passes, or 1, 2, 3, that ball should be out of the pocket. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, it should be 1, 2, 3, that ball is out. And I understand it's tough to judge a QB's passing game, especially in the weather that happened yesterday and that icy slate type of snow that it started off with, and then it got fluffier as the game went on. Yeah, it's kind of hard to judge a QB's pass game in weather conditions like that. But still, I would like to see quicker passes, even him stepping up in the pocket. That's also something I'd like to see more out of him, as really, there's a lot of times where I even think in this past game right here, if he would have stepped up in the pocket, I think there's a lot of times he would have been able to avoid at least a couple of those sacks. Even that one where he got the safety, if he would have stepped up in the pocket, I think there was a possibility where he may have not got sacked in the end zone and would have been able to at least get the ball out somewhere in close proximity to one of his receivers so he wouldn't get a grounding call. But, it's something where I think he needs to do better stepping up in the pocket, the quick passes, to not look down this receiver, because, you look down your receiver, the defense knows exactly where you're going to throw it, obviously. So it's something where the quick plays, Hurts needs to get better with those quick, short passes. And also, I know the play calling comes into consideration, but we'll have to see what happens next week. Hopefully the weather treats the Eagles a little better at the Link next week. No snow in the forecast, but knowing January weather, who knows what the weather will be next week, honestly. So we'll just have to wait and see. But now, let's go on to the offense. And no doubt about it, this is our player of the game for offense. Not even going to ignore it. Saquon Barkley, another incredible game by number 26. And speaking of number 26, well, he had 26 carries, 205 yards on the game, 2 rushing touchdowns. One rushing touchdown was 62 yards. The other one was 78 yards. So, yeah, incredible game by this man right here. The run game was in full force. That's why I literally said at the beginning of this Eagles chat, yeah, the Eagles ran over the LA Rams, because they did run over the Rams. Literally, the run game was all over the place yesterday, and you got to give a lot of credit to that offensive line for the blocks that they gave, for the seams that they were able to give for Saquon Barkley. Got to shout out Mekhi Becton. He did an incredible job with the blocking for, some of those touchdowns. The one touchdown especially, the 62-yard one. If it wasn't for Becton, it may have been the 78-yard, but I know it was one of those. Excuse me for not remembering which touchdown run it was, but if Mekhi Becton didn't make a key block in that situation, Barkley would not have that touchdown that he had. So you got to give credit to this offensive line for their blocking. The offensive linemen, I feel like they don't get recognized enough, but they certainly were a big piece on why the run game and Barkley had such a successful game, 100%. So great game by Saquon. But if there's one thing I have to criticize the Eagles offense on, yes, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I have to, the play calls. That's something where I was not quite sure what Kellen Moore was trying to do at times. His ability to adjust yesterday was questioning, deserved to be questioned a little bit. Now, I get you're not just adjusting to the Rams, but you were also adjusting to the weather, as the game started off with not a snowflake in the area, and then by the second quarter, there was a light thin layer of snow on the field, and then when we got to the third quarter, we started to need the blowers to come out so that we could just see the lines and the hash marks and everything. So I get you were not just adjusting to the team, but to the weather. So that's something that still had me a little concerned, whether it was with the pass game where they were doing screenplays that were working and then they would stop doing that, where they had bubble screens that were working. Even in the pass game against Green Bay, they had regular curl routes, curl out routes that were working and doing well, but for some reason the Eagles would just stop doing that, and they would go back to the run game and run similar plays where the Eagles were stopped multiple times in the backfield yesterday with the run game. As well as the run game did, there were some strange calls that indeed happened for the run game that ended some of the Eagles' drives. And obviously the Rams at times, 100%, were going to stack the box. You have a running back who has over 2,000 yards in the regular season. Who wouldn't? And that's something where the ability for this Eagles offense to adjust has me a little concerned. The Eagles, again, can't say it enough. I sound like a broken record, but I have to continue saying it. You have to have a strong game plan against the Washington Commanders next week. Something where, yeah, this team's seen you 3 times. The offensive play calls, the adjustments in the offense have to be on top tier next week going up against the Commanders team. Hopefully you have better weather to work with, which you should. There's no snow yet anyway in the forecast. Again, knowing January weather, who knows in the Delaware Valley. But it's something where I would like to see the play calls be a little bit smoother, whether it's the short passes to get your QB in the rhythm or just your ability to know the right times to use the run game. So we'll just have to see how the offense in general develops into next game in the NFC Championship game. But now moving on to the defense. Not going to ignore this at all. This is our defensive player of the game. Going to get right to it. Jalen Carter, incredible game. He had 5 tackles, 3 QB hits, 2 tackles for losses. He also had 2 sacks and 1 pass deflection. And to go to the sacks, thank you, Jalen Carter, because if he didn't make that sack at the very end of the game on Matthew Stafford, there's no telling where the Eagles would be heading right now. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know if it'd be the NFC Championship game. It may be Cancun. Yeah, if Jalen Carter didn't make that, they could have been heading to Cancun with the Dallas Cowboys, which is something we don't want to see. Don't want to see that. But incredible play by Carter. Again, thank you for that play at the end. Again, Saquon Barkley, he had an incredible game. He was a big piece of this win. But again, if Carter didn't make the play he did at the end of the game, who knows where we'd be sitting right now. We may not be sitting in the position, let's just say we may not be sitting in the position that we are in. I'll keep it at that. But the Eagles were able to get the win. That's all that matters. But of course, one thing I would have to criticize the defense on would be the questionable light coverage, especially at the end of the game in the secondary, where, again, this drives me nuts. It happened when Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator. It happened when Jonathan Gannon was the coordinator. Last year, the Eagles didn't even have a defense, so we're just going to throw that out the window. But to talk specifically about yesterday's game, especially that final drive, the light coverage where the defensive back was lined up at least 7 yards off the receiver. I know Vic Fangio is known for doing that, but it was driving me up a wall, especially with Darius Slay, as he was, way off of his man. And by the time Slay would get on his man, all the Rams needed to do to get down the field was typical curl routes to get the ball caught. I understand they were trying to keep the Rams in bounds to wear the clock off, but the Rams went down the field way too fast and had plenty of time to spare. So it was something where that had me a little concerned yesterday with the secondary and how that was being ran. But hey, the Eagles defense stepped up at the end, causing them to go 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, 4 down, and at least they won the game. So I'm not going to complain any longer. The Eagles got the win. They head to the NFC Championship game. That's all that matters, period. Let's move on. But now, to finalize this Eagles chat, Jake Elliott, last topic of the chat right here. Again, it was a little iffy, another iffy game. Now, for the positive note on Jake Elliott, he was 3 for 3 on his field goals, but he's only let's just say, missed 2 extra points this game, which are 2 points that could have mattered big time if the LA Rams were successful on that final drive. So, yeah, definitely a little concerning. And here's another stat that's nothing to brag about. For the whole entire postseason, Jake Elliott is 2 for 5 for extra point attempts. Yeah, that's not good at all. That's a good amount of points that are left up. I understand it's only 3 points that were left on the board during this whole entire postseason, But still, I mean, 3 points matter a lot in playoff games, especially as close as NFL playoff football is. A point is a lot. And it's something where you have to make those extra points. It may not sound like anything big at first, but it really is. 1 point is a lot in the NFL playoffs, and it's something where, yeah, hopefully Elliott's able to start banging them through the uprights. He's been good for field goals. Let's make him good for field goals and also good for extra points. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's all for me. The Eagles get the job done. Let's enjoy this victory Monday. Let's enjoy this victory week. And yeah, Delaware Valley, go celebrate because we got a game to be ready for it next week against the Washington Commanders at Lincoln Financial Field in South Philadelphia. That's all for me. And as always, go Birds! Have a good week, everybody. I'll see you back here for hopefully a positive NFC Championship Eagles chat. Have a good one.